whatever you think this video is going to be about, I'm going to, just try and set up your expectation. It's not, you have no idea. You have absolutely no idea what this video is going to be about. And some part of me really actually enjoys that. I'm having a fabulous time knowing that I know something that you don't know. That I am familiar with one of the craziest stories in the world of football, potentially I've ever seen, and you don't know. Something that when it was sent to me by one of the mods for the Twitch stream, I actually responded with the phrase, "This might be a top 5 Zealandism of all time." Because this involves all the things I love. Weird government agencies, a league that nobody outside of the immediate area cares about. And the fact that almost none of it is entirely verifiable, leaving most of it up to the imagination, where you're just left trying to figure out what the hell happened, and you know something weird happened, but outside of flying directly to Montenegro, you wouldn't be able to find this out for sure. Montenegro is part of what was the former Yugoslavia. It's down in that part of the world where everybody gets along and sings Kumbaya together down in southeastern Europe. Great time everybody's having down there, but they do, they've all developed their own football leagues, whether it be Croatia or Serbia, that have both found huge success as national teams, or Macedonia that's found its, latest, greatest moment with its, stonewalling of Italy trying to make it to the World Cup. They've been able to produce some quality. Bosnia and Herzegovina turning Aiden Dzeko into, he's still playing. He's 38. That man was still starting for Bosnia and Herzegovina not that long ago. But Montenegro is not one of those nations that's managed to find success. Other than when I was a younger lad, they were combined with Serbia and went to a World Cup as Serbia and Montenegro. I think that might have been in 2006 or something. But now Montenegro's on its own, and it has a full league system, and we're headed to the third tier of that league system. That is where we are going to find a story that is being reported by one Richard Wilson. Richard Wilson is somebody that covers a lot of Balkans football. He is I'll let him describe it to you, a scout, an analyst, a writer, a podcaster, talking flags of various Balkan countries, football amongst lots of other stuff, right? And Richard Wilson has gotten his hands on a story I'm still not sure if I entirely believe, but I'll let Richard take you through this. Montenegro news. And again, the only source is not Richard for this. Richard's the person that made me aware of it. We are going to refer to news articles as well that are also talking about this. Richard Wilson. In my long time reporting random bits from the region, this is potentially by far the craziest story I've seen. So here we go. He's just repeating what I've already said. Honestly, how many more times can we repeat it without finally telling you what this thing is? Well, I mean, I've got plenty of things I can talk about if you want. The fact that I ran 9 miles today at just about a 10-minute mile pace, which was absolutely electric considering I was feeling bad and, it was cold outside and my tummy hurt. And so I thought, anyways, the third tier game this past weekend between Zagros and Zeta was abandoned on 70 minutes with Zeta up 19-0. First of all, massive shout out to Zeta being up 19-0 when this goes down, because Zeta is, you were thinking I wasn't going to be able to find the standings. Clearly you don't know me very well. Zeta is in 4th. They are competing to be somewhere near the top of the league. There is a hilariously large divide in the Montenegrin 3rd division between the haves and the have-nots. We've got 4 teams whose goal difference is 34-2, 50-3, 28-5, and 27-4. Everybody else's goal difference is negative in the entire league. Theirs is 9-10. Theirs is 6-20. We got one team down here that had a 0-0 draw and is somehow 4 matches behind the teams that are at the top of the league. But all the way at the bottom is Zagros. They have 2 goals for, 50 goals against. They've lost all 4 matches that they've played, but at least they're playing a full schedule. That's the match they're referring to. But it was abandoned after 70 minutes. They didn't actually finish the full 90 minutes. If they did, maybe, they would have scored even more goals. But why, Richard? All 10 Zagros players on the pitch collapsed and had to be taken to the hospital. Okay, per Milan Knežević, MP and former coup attempter and man banned from Croatia, that's a hell of a rap sheet to just intro a dude with, this is because the Zagros side had been poisoned at halftime. We are now looking at a real possibility that the entirety of the Zagros team, which by the way was the team losing by 19 goals, was poisoned at halftime. But we have not gotten to the craziest part of this. Richard is saying they were poisoned with plutonium. Is this the Cold War? Plutonium poisoning? They use this shit to build atomic bombs. That's what they use plutonium for. It's one of those forbidden elements. And yet somehow in the third division of Montenegro, there are teams being poisoned, allegedly, with plutonium. But at the very least, something unbelievably weird has happened here because all 10 Zagros players on the pitch collapsed at the same time and had to be taken to the hospital. Right? So that or either they're running some sort of long con here. Yes, per Knizovic, which he's the guy that's initially reported this, the Knizovic guy, Milan Knizovic. The players were helicoptered out of the game to the hospital to deal with them being poisoned with plutonium, which is worth restating because it's plutonium. Other reports stated it was 6 players who went down at once and that injuries were confirmed legitimate by doctors. So there are other reports outside of Milan Knizovic that said the majority of the team collapsed some point in the second half and were taken to doctors and confirmed that the injuries were legitimate. They weren't just faking it to get out of the game. Knizovic is the only one, according to Richard Wilson here, that mentions plutonium, but there's no other news I can find confirming the injured player's condition. And this is as of 11 hours ago. I record these typically the day before or the night before they come out, or sometimes I record them the day of. I don't know. You don't know my life. What the hell? Stop asking so many questions, man. And Richard continues, though, save for what I consider a logical assumption on my part that if someone actually had poisoned an entire football team with plutonium, it would have been bigger news. Knizovic is perhaps not exactly Mr. Reliable, but certainly this is a story that potentially warrants a lot more attention than your average third-tier Montenegrin game. I'd beg to differ. Very interesting league this year. If there's even a remote chance, he's correct. They CC'd Sweeper Pod, which the Sweeper Podcast is just an excellent podcast for covering obscure football stuff. And I have managed to find the article that actually quotes the entire letter that was written by Milan Knizovic, written to the KCCG. I don't really know what that is. I'm going to Google it right now. The Clinical Center of Montenegro. So he's written a letter to basically a hospital, right? The people that are going to be dealing with this sort of thing. This is the letter, right? It's been transcribed. I have then translated it from Bosnian to English, because apparently it was in Bosnian according to the Google Translate thing up here. And it says that Milan Knizovic is the president of the Democratic People's Party. So he is the leader of one of the political parties in Montenegro that is the one that's writing this letter, and apparently he has a passion for third-tier football in Montenegro. Some of the quotes in here are buck wild. Just put your seatbelt on. I'm aware of today's match, the third Montenegrin league between Zagros and Zeta, all 10 football players, the home team, collapsed. Parentheses, perhaps my favorite part of this entire thing, they could not find the 11th. One of the players was just fucking missing. Is that normal in the Montenegrin league? Did they not look for him after halftime? They just lost one of them? Did he try to go to the bathroom and then get kidnapped? I have no idea. They couldn't find him. They went on with 10 players. All 10 of those players, according to Milan Knizovic, have collapsed. They were urgently transported to the emergency center as suspected they were poisoned with plutonium at halftime. Something I find interesting here is that nobody at any point is accusing the other club of poisoning them with plutonium, which means there is actually this like latent possibility that the plutonium was accidentally introduced into the dressing room somehow. It was in the walls, it was in the soil. Plutonium stuff's incredibly volatile and dangerous, and this isn't exactly a part of the world that has been free from war or potential storage of plutonium in various places, right? And so they're not saying... Nobody is accusing the other team of doing the poisoning. They're just saying the players were poisoned. And Knizovic is saying the players were poisoned by fucking plutonium. But back to the other batshit crazy quotes here. Namely, in an uncertain and exciting game with the score 19-0, wouldn't describe that as uncertain and exciting. That's not uncertain and exciting in American football, let alone football. He then goes on to say he's making himself available to you if you judge that some of them should continue treatment at VMA or basically whatever your assessment is. But maybe the real kicker of this whole thing, I know that you will do everything in your power to ensure that the football players of FC Zagros are cured by the next round and ready for new sporting challenges. Yeah, I know they were poisoned by plutonium, but I know you guys are going to be able to cure them up in no time, and they'll be ready to play the next match. Can't wait, brother. Think it's going to be awesome. Because if we failed to save Montenegrin football, it is our duty to save the football players. Receive a nice sports greeting. May it be eternal. Progress the rest. I'm imagining that's just some sort of ending phrase that's common in Montenegro. But yeah, based off this letter, it sounds like he's somebody that's involved maybe in the ownership of the club or something. And I'm not necessarily saying that Milan Knizovic is crazy here. He's just the only person that's coming out and saying that this team was poisoned by plutonium. And I just feel like that somewhere somebody should be doing a little follow-up on that, at the very least, to figure out why the majority of a third division Montenegrin team has collapsed in unison on the field and been confirmed to be ill by multiple reports from doctors. Something's going on in the dressing room, right? Like at Jegos, okay? Because they were actually the home team. The team that collapsed were the home. So this would be the home dressing room where the poisoning occurred, making it even less likely that Zeta was involved. But of course, Zeta's already winning 19-0. So if you're going to break out the magic golden bullet of poisoning the other team with plutonium, I feel like you would save that for a match that you're not winning. That just, that stands to reason.